Hey guys, what's up? My name is Amos Stillwell. I'm here to talk to you about franchises. Franchises are what keeps the studios going, okay? They make millions and millions of dollars every year. Let me just name a few of them. Star Trek, Batman, James Bond, Marvel movies. I mean, these movies just are massive and they make tons and tons of money. What's the one thing that all these franchises have in common? They don't fucking end. They keep going and going and going. Why? Stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? Now, if you got this huge franchise that's just going on and on and on and on with no end in sight, you're eventually going to lose track of the end of the story. It's just going to go on much longer than it needs to go. Now, this is quite different from the model that we saw in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. When a franchise ran its course, it died. It ended. We didn't see any more of it. It was done, and we were able to move on to something that was original, more interesting. The big question of the day is, how are these studios able to keep these franchises going without ever feeling like they need to end them? In order to answer this question, we gotta go back in time. In fact, we gotta go back to the year 1989. In 1989, Tim Burton released Batman. It was a cultural touchstone and landmark in the comic book movie genre. It was the highest grossing blockbuster at the time. Naturally, they were going to make a sequel. But not just one sequel, but 3 sequels. In the late 90s, Warner Brothers released what is one of the most famously terrible movies of all time, Batman and Robin. The film was deemed by fans and critics as a complete and utter failure. I saw the movie when I was 5 years old, and even then I was like, something's not right here, this is wrong. What do you expect, though, from the filmmaker who once said, they're called comic books, not drama books? Naturally, it wasn't long before Warner Brothers wanted to get the franchise going again. But they were only thinking within the guidelines of the continuity. They threw out many ideas like another Joel Schumacher Batman movie, a Batman movie that takes place in the future that's based on the animated series Batman Beyond. They were desperately trying to find a new way to breathe new life into the story that they already created. Then they came upon a director by the name of Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan pitched the idea of, completely reimagining the Batman story. At the time when Batman Begins came out, I remember people didn't really even know what it was. Is it a prequel? Is it a sequel? Is it a continuation? Is it a remake? Someone I know didn't like it because the Batmobile didn't look anything like the Batmobile in the other movies. Around this time in the year 2005 was when I first started hearing the word reboot. It's because of this reboot mentality that Christopher Nolan adopted. Batman was finally given an opportunity to be taken seriously as a character for the first time ever. That's something that fans hadn't really seen. I fucking love the Tim Burton Batman movies, but Batman Begins was the first time that a director really dug into the complexities of that character. It created a trend that is still going to this day. Just last year, we've seen movies that still follow the framework of Batman Begins. Basically, you take a well-known icon and you put him in a realistic and gritty environment and you make him a little edgier than usual. You showcase a side of this character that maybe people hadn't seen before. The idea of the franchise reboot has given Hollywood the ability to make every single successful franchise immortal. Whenever something dies, they just press the fucking reset button. People are excited. They're like, yay, yay, Jurassic World, Transformers 4, X-Men First Class, The Amazing Spider-Man. This is a problem. This is a fucking problem. If Hollywood is given the ability to instantly restart any franchise they want and keep it going just for the sake of making more and more money, how long until they lose complete sight of the storytelling fundamentals of filmmaking? Look back on the 1980s. The 1980s had its set of movie franchises. You had Star Wars. Star Wars was 3 movies. 3 movies and then the series was done. You think that they could just let it sit. You ended the story. Luke Skywalker has, his father's dead, he's become a Jedi, the Empire's fucking dead. Where do you go from there? That's the end of the story that George Lucas wanted to tell. They're making more Star Wars movies. There's more coming out. They're not stopping. My question is, are they motivated more for money? Or are they motivated more because they just want to keep that franchise going? Nobody's going to want to take risks anymore. It kind of reminds me of what that Hirsch guy talked about with the mass mentality. Blockbuster films used to take on this sort of free and more kind of individualistic and open-minded approach. Jaws, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. It was all just original stuff that studios took a chance with. Now we're just getting belated sequels to those movies. Already making a sequel to Beetlejuice, Mrs. Doubtfire, and The Goonies. The franchise mentality is kind of like the mass mentality. You're clumping together these once original ideas into kind of conglomerate, unoriginal, it doesn't have a lot of room for free thought. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. Now, I may seem like I'm just complaining about this, but the truth is, I'm a fan at heart, okay? I remember when the movie X-Men came out in the year 2000. I loved that movie when I was a kid. I thought it was great. I had a ton of fun. 14 years later, Bryan Singer, the director of X-Men, is back, and he's making a new X-Men movie, Days of Future Past. Now, in most cases, I'd be like, why are they still making these movies? They've been making these movies for 14 years, Can't, the 2010s have their own franchise? But you know what? X-Men is different because I love X-Men comics, and I think that the story that they're telling with this new movie, it's a story that I love, and I think deserves to be told. Essentially, the best way to sum up how I feel about this is, it's not okay to reboot a franchise if you're just a studio who's just trying to make more money and keep a franchise going. But it is worth it to reboot or continue a franchise if you're a filmmaker who has a story within that franchise that you just really want to tell. And you feel like that story deserves to be told. And when a story deserves to be told, that's when you know a movie needs to be made.